lining each other up.
All right, it is 6:49. I'll call this meeting to order. We are technically early compared to our usual 7 p.m. start time, but apologize to everyone for us being late on our planned 6:30 start time. But with that, Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Gettle.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Robinson. Here. Glover.
Here.
And Sperry.
Here.
And I already messed up, and we need to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. But we know who's here for it.
That's right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have the Unified Police Department report. We'll hear from Chief Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's great to be here tonight. I trust you all got the statistic report we put out last week. That included our financials. Just some of the highlights: we had 947 cases in Midvale last month. We issued 735 citations. A lot of those included our winter parking once again, just trying to be on top of that when we get these large storms, just to help out our public works partners. And the financials were still just at 5% under our projected budget, which is trending very well. Want to mention that this upcoming Saturday, as we've done several years in the past, and as we do typically twice a year, we're doing our DEA take back. That's where any unprescribed drugs or anything like that, you can bring them down to our substation, and we'll have an officer out front from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. that can take those. And this is a statewide effort where they get these and take them. DEA will actually transport them to a burn facility so they don't go in our landfills or anything like that, to dispose of them properly. I did get a letter of appreciation from one of our shelter resource officers that responded to a mental health issue this last Saturday. And what I want to point out is there was a young gal in crisis, and as normal, we'll have UFA co-respond and make sure the scene's safe and assist us as needed. This patient was in crisis. She recognized that perhaps a lot of police and fire near her could make things worse, so she grabbed, and I don't know her actual, if she's firefighter or EMT, but Samantha Benefield was pointed out as from the UFA crew that assisted in showing compassion, care, and being able to very efficiently calm this girl down, get her to de-escalate to a point where we could treat her. And our officer felt very strongly that she needed to be pointed out, because it's a situation where in crisis, things can go really bad really fast, and it's not a great situation. But with both police and fire on scene, majority of the officers and firefighters stood back and let these two do their work, and were able to calm this gal down and help her out and get her to the help she needed. So I really want to point that out. Not proud to point out my thanks for UFA Fire as well as Sandy Fire, because if you haven't heard, Sunday evening, one of our officers set his lunch bag on the smooth top surface in our break room, and somehow the burner got turned on, and luckily a sprinkler head did its job and put out the small fire in our break room. So we've got it. Really, it was contained to the sprinkler did its job. It put out the fire immediately, but quite a bit of water went down. The UFA crews, as well as our crew that was on duty that night, did a lot of squeegeeing, got a majority of the water out, but the damage is pretty much contained to just, it's wet. So it's getting better. It's a little humid over there right now, but we're working on that. I want to point out, and I believe, Council, you should have all gotten an invitation to our our crossing guard appreciation luncheon, which is going to be May 3rd at 12:30. I'm hoping you did get that invitation. If you didn't, please let me know. And it's not, it's just, I've been trying to do this for years, is just get them in and show appreciation for what they do. If you've ever stood there and watched a school zone, it's kind of a terrible place because everyone's in a hurry, everyone's distracted, they want to get their kids there, they're more important than others, and it's dangerous, and these folks are there to make it safer for us. So it's a little that we can do to show a lot of our appreciation. So if you can make it, that's great. If not, they certainly will understand. The Residents Against Graffiti team got a hold of me last week. If you are familiar with the rail bridge that goes over Wasatch, for a long time we've had some graffiti up there, and it's hard to get to. They told me they had a new pole that had a spray can on it. They could address the graffiti, and we were going to shut off the roadway so they could safely do it. And when I followed up, I went over there this morning, is actually after our coordination meeting this morning, just to see how it was, and they were actually on scene. Those poles didn't work, and they kind of thought a little bit out of the box. I won't tell how it happened, but the graffiti has now been covered up. So when I told them how proud they were to their supervisor, he wasn't so proud. So I said, I don't want to get him in trouble, but I'm very appreciative of him. But they have covered that up, and hopefully they'll be back if they have to be. But they did a great job. And last but not least, if you know Officer Widman, he's one of our shelter resource officers. He is moving down to Corpus Christi, Texas, where it's the best kiteboarding in the entire world, according to him. And that's his new challenge in life. And so he is resigning from our department. Good news with that is we have Officer Lechuga, and I don't know if you recall her. She was involved in the McDonald's incident we had last year. She has been reserving for us, coming out on weekends free of charge and coming out and riding a patrol car. She's decided accounting's not as fun as being a police officer. So with her 4-year degree in accounting, she is putting that in her back pocket and is going to be onboarding with us the 24th of this month. So we lose a good one, we get a good one, and we'll take that right now. So that is all I have to report tonight. If you have any questions for me, I'm here. I will be excusing myself for just a short time. In a few minutes, we have our detectives that are going to go serve a warrant, and I just want to go do a walkthrough on that and come back afterwards. Any questions for me? Thank you.
No questions. Be safe on that warrant. All right. Next up, we have a recognition of Lindsay Elsmore for her years of service as the Harvest Days Parade Chair. I just believe I see her walking in now, but to not throw her on the spot right as she walks in, that we're going to go to the Earth Day proclamation and then go back to that item. So I will read this now. Whereas on April 22nd, 1970, United States Senator Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin and environmental advocate Dennis Hayes organized the first nationwide day devoted to environmental awareness and education that was celebrated by an estimated 20 million Americans. And whereas Earth Day has grown into a global movement with participation from 192 countries, and whereas Earth Day serves as a reminder of the importance of protecting and preserving our planet for current and future generations, and whereas individuals and institutions have a mutual responsibility to seek economical and ethical choices that enable the world as well as our individual communities to establish and maintain sustainable societies. And whereas the theme for Earth Day 2023 is Restore Our Earth, emphasizing the need for collective action to address environmental challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And whereas Midvale City recognizes the importance of local action in addressing global environmental issues and is committed to promoting sustainability and resilience in our community. And whereas individual actions can make a significant impact on the environment in reducing waste, conserving energy and water, supporting local food systems, and advocating for policies that address environmental challenges can all contribute to a more sustainable future. And now, therefore, let it be resolved that myself, Mayor Marcus Stevenson, and the City Council of Midvale City do hereby proclaim that on Thursday, April 22nd, 2023, Midvale City will recognize and participate in the national celebration of Earth Day, adopted on this 18th day of April 2023. Okay.
Here, here.
All right. With that, we've got Lindsay in the house. Come on up, Lindsay. You bring your family with you too, if they'd like to join you. Maybe. No? No? All right. Well,
She's bringing me. No, thank you.
you can go to the microphone. Yeah. We just wanted to take a moment and thank you for your years of service. Lindsay has been our Harvest Days Parade Chair since 2008, doing that for 14 years. I don't mean to age you or myself, but I was 14 years old when you started that, and that is an incredible amount of time of service. I think we all know, sitting up here, the amount of family sacrifice that doing this work entails. We all at least get paid a little bit, whereas you just fully did all of this volunteering your time and your family to continuously do something that I know is so important to our community and all of our residents. And we just really wanted to take a moment to say thank you. And also recognizing that a thank you is not, that doesn't give you, that is not nearly everything that you deserve, but you really have done something significant for our community over those many years, and we just couldn't thank you enough. With that, we do have a little plaque for you that we do want to give. Now you can come up here and I'll hand this to you. So, Best Spirit of Harvest Days Parade Committee Chair. And we tried to replicate this off of some of the awards that we give during the Harvest Days Parade, and just wanted to thank you for all of your work. I do have a question for you, so now I'm going to ask you to go back to the microphone. Because what I don't know, because I don't know that Rory was around. I don't know if anybody else was around in 2008. I need to know, Lindsay, how did you get pulled into being the Harvest Days Parade Chair?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. I was helping someone who was the Sandy City Parade Chair, and I thought I really want to do this in my own community, and I got an invitation to join the parade committee. So I thought, I'm just going to be a committee member. And so I met Candy Tippett, who was the Harvest Days Parade Chair that day at Starbucks, and she gave me a list but she only had the first page of the list of participants, so it was like half the people in the parade. And then she told me a budget, and I walked out of the Starbucks after 15 minutes and said, I think I just got put in charge of the parade. So anyway, we had announced it the year before and enjoyed serving in the community, and my husband got voluntold for a lot of things, and my dad and my mom, but honestly, it was just such a joy. It's such a fun experience to celebrate Midvale with so many people, and I just get giddy on parade day, and just to see so many people happy and engaged and celebrating our community and our diversity, and it was a ton of fun. So time to move on to other things, but just some cherished years for sure.
Well, I think all of us are feeling the weight of just the shoes that now we have to fill, that I don't know that any of us quite know how we're going to do that, because you did such a great job for our community for so many years. So thank you. I do want to open it up to the council if you have any comments for Lindsay, or questions like how she got involved in the first place.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. Working with you was an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate your attention to detail and how you truly enjoyed and took pride in what you did, and it showed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I want to say, I appreciate thinking of the council every time that comes up. I always feel like as it comes around, you're always like, what are you guys going to ride in? You know, what are we going to do to make sure, you guys are seen? And I think that's, a bunch of kids probably don't want to see council members all that much unless we're throwing candy towards them. But for us, I think it's a good experience. And you know, you do a lot for our community that's, you know, not stated enough, and I'm sad to see this happen. So hopefully you keep contributing. I know you guys will. So I'm sad that this is, you know, going down, and I've appreciated it. And things that aren't stated as well. We've thrown some hard things at you where we were like, hey, we don't want X, Y, or Z in our parades and stuff. And you've handled that, I think, very professionally and very well. And so you deal with all of our emotions and stuff. And, you know, I don't know how else to thank you for those things without causing more problems and just rolling with it. So I really appreciate you and your husband and your kids. They're great kids. She gave me a big old smile when she walked in, so we appreciate you.
I'll say all of that, thank you so much. Also, you know, we did go through a process of redoing like how we invited people to be in the process. So I'm trying to say that as diplomatically as possible. And I think that's what Bryant was tiptoeing around. But I know you were very willing. Either way, I think you had one idea of how it should go, and that's the way that we went. And I think that has made the parade that much better for the community, a very welcoming and inclusive kind of experience. So thank you for all you've done with that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate everything your family has done and yourself. It's helps Midvale, and we appreciate all of our citizens getting involved. And just, you're an example of what can be done. Thank you.
I gotta speak, right? So
Yeah.
I incorporate everything. I got a little worried when Bryant was saying we threw a lot of hard things at you, right after saying we threw out candy. So
I might have thrown candy at her too.
we could have done that, but
Very
hopefully
likely
not
happened.
too hard. But the kids were nodding in agreement that the kids don't want to see council members unless we're throwing candy and not too hard at the heads. But yeah, thank you for everything you did. I mean, you know, I'm looking at this thinking, as I've been on the council, I haven't been on Harvest Days committee, and it's probably run better because I wasn't and because you were in charge. So, because I would not have had much to contribute, I guess. But no, it's been great, and no, just thank you for all you did, and enjoy your time, your free time, not being in charge of this. So, is she eligible to like win the bingo prizes now? Yeah? Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Well, again, we know that this thank you doesn't nearly make up for everything you have contributed to our community, but we wanted to make sure we took a moment and did that. And I think we want to make sure that we get some photos for you. Do you want to
Yeah.
come up here? Does that work?
We have the kiddos come up too.
Sure. I just want to say that if I can, or if I may, but there are a lot of people in the community that make this event happen. And so, although, yes, I am the chair, it takes a lot of hands and a lot of volunteers to make the parade a success. And there are several people besides me who have made that event happen, and I'm really, really grateful for them as well. So, I just don't want to take all the credit because there's a whole committee of wonderful people behind it. So, can you get my good side?
Hey, kiddos. Come on. I'm short, so you guys got to stand like maybe over here because I can't see over the thing here. Are we going
Do
on
they
here?
want to do this?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just not, and then let me stand on the chair, which is a little dangerous. Thank you.
We do a bunny ears?
Okay, I think I can see everybody. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 5 more. Sorry, just a few. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
That's relatively painless.
Lindsay, let me keep this. It's got. I'm pretty sure there is.
I don't have the grip strength I thought I had.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Must be that public hearing.
All right. The next item on our agenda are public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda may address the city council at this point by stepping to the microphone and giving their name for the record. Just so everybody is aware, public comments that we have, public hearings that we have tonight, we do have 3 of them, and they all deal with the Mills project. So if you are here to make public comment on the Mills project, we will have that opportunity later in the agenda. If you are here for any other reason, now is the time to step forward to the microphone, and you'll be given 3 minutes. Do we have any public comments? Okay, seeing none. All right, we'll move on to reports. For my report, just a quick Unified Police report. So last week, the UPD board met, and in that we had, 2 changes come out of that meeting. The first being that the UPD board is going to start meeting more often as we go through this reorganization process. So instead of meeting once a month, we will start meeting twice a month. That begins next month, so we'll be starting twice a month, starting in May. And then the other thing is that Chief Mazarin, who's the chief of police over the entire organization, we are giving him a temporary reassignment to become the, it's kind of a made-up title right now, but the administrator of reorganization. And so he will be fully focused on the day-to-day reorganization of UPD. At the next meeting in May, at the beginning of May, the sheriff will come with a replacement plan because he will be fully leaving the day-to-day operations. So she'll come with a replacement plan and how that will work at that time. And in that same meeting, the board will both finalize the changes to the new schedule that we've determined, and we will officially appoint Chief Mazarin into this new position. Any questions on that?
It sounds like we've made a lot of progress.
I think so. I think it's got, as we all know, there are some pretty complex and challenging questions in this process, but the fact that our UPD communities will have somebody fully looking out for us in that process, that we'll have a point person working on reorganization, I think will really help get the ball rolling. Okay, with that, we'll go to council reports. Councilmember Diddle.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not lost on me that today we have the chicken standard discussion on our agenda, and also a chicken restaurant was one of the big topics of discussion for the entire city last week. I don't know how I feel about the building yet, but I do welcome everyone to check out the new Raising Cane's, the Post Malone endorsed Raising Cane's. Never been there myself, but it certainly does look interesting, and there was a line completely out the door and wrapped around the building all weekend. So hopefully when a business in Midvale is successful, I think, the community as a whole is successful. So I look forward to seeing what happens there with that particular restaurant. And I also look forward to seeing what our chicken standard discussion, how that goes later today as well. Did someone say something? No? Okay. I did want to say also, I talked to City Manager Dahl about this, but I don't know if it's because of the winter that we had, but it seems like things are unusually dirty around the city, just from like a perspective of trash bags, plastic bags and stuff blowing around. There's a lot of shopping carts in different places in the city, so I think we do have a plan in place. I'm in speaking to the city manager to get some of that cleaned up. Hopefully, I don't remember it being this bad in the past, but I'm just going to liken it to the winter that we had, and perhaps people not being as careful with the trash and stuff. But if you can, especially plastic bags, secure them as best you can. There's a lot of plastic bags caught in trees all around the city, and honestly, unless someone gets up there and takes them down, they're just going to be there until another windstorm comes and blows them somewhere else, which is not the greatest solution in the world. But anyway, that's what I wanted to discuss just briefly tonight. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, a couple things. I'd like to thank the city staff for answering all my emails this week. I feel like I sent a lot. I appreciate the responsiveness. I think it's good when I can respond back to citizens' requests as quickly as I do. So I know you're busy as already, so seeing my emails will probably like, oh, great, here's another one. The bulky waste pickup, I think, went pretty good. I didn't see as many crazy things. The one thing that I do find interesting is there are some citizens that like will cut a tree down and not bundle it or anything and just leave it expecting something to happen. Monroe had it for a while, and so did Olympus. I obviously don't think Ace has to go and fix that, but I also, like Olympus has these bushes that are sitting there that they'll start dying and it could be like a hazard. So I don't know what we need to do. I don't know if that's like, we need to send 1,000 communications out regarding what that means, because I feel like that's the leftover of problems with bulky waste is usually green waste that has just been like, here's this entire tree. And then, you know.
So I had planned on touching on the bulky waste as part of the city manager's report, so if you're all comfortable with me, I can just do it now.
Or we can do it.
Okay.
We can do it.
All right.
I don't want to disrupt your flow. Okay. The other thing is that storage facility that's just right here, it's like that 3-story self right across from the Overstark. That 2nd-story window has been broken for like a year. You know, how long do we allow, you know, it looks pretty bad. It's a 2-pane, so one of them is still there, so maybe they just don't feel like they need to, but I don't think it's a very welcoming site. And I usually try not to bring that up, but when you go like a year, you know, I just don't think it's, I think what we want to project as a city.
It's actually been broken since COVID times,
It could be, 2 years.
so 3.
So yeah, we should probably find out what's going on and get them to do something. If they don't want that pain, they should just clean out the rest of the broken stuff. But we should probably look into that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Robinson?
I have nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Glover?
The only thing I have this evening is the mosquitoes are already out. So start watching for water puddles, because this year is probably going to be, they think it's going to be pretty bad for mosquitoes.
Before you move on, should we be worried about the 4 lakes that are in front of the Zions Bank property, right? That they have those tiers, right? Isn't that, we tell
If they have
citizens they can do
standing
that?
water, I mean, if it's standing a long time, they can, the abatement district can put some stuff in to help with that if we report it. But, and if anybody has ponds and stuff, they can call the mosquito abatement. They'll give them fish to put in their ponds to keep the mosquitoes out. Things like tires and buckets just in your yard, all of those things can have just 1 inch or so of water in them, and mosquitoes are going to start breeding in them. So I was surprised to find out last week that literally the mosquitoes, they're starting to come out. So be aware of it. That's all tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Sperry?
Yeah, thank you for those who supported the Can Use Education Foundation's gala event last week. That was the one where it was a fundraiser event, but they also recognized scholarship recipients. There was one from each high school in the district, as well as an overall winner, or recipient, I should say. So congratulations to Kenneth Siegmiller from Hillcrest, who's a Midvale resident who received it for that school, and you know, it was great to read what, you know, her essay, and you know, to be the recipient of that, and then, you know, the mayor and his wife, and Susie and Amber from the county who participated. It was a great evening, and to raise more money for additional scholarships that we handed out. Next Tuesday is the foundation's Teacher of the Year Award, which I believe is at 7 o'clock at Hillcrest. So those who want to come, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Hey, Quinn.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to mention, and I didn't, I think you need to mention this, is the Hillcrest Theater Group. Would you please explain what happened there?
Congratulations to Hillcrest Theater for winning state for their tier. So I don't know. What else do you want me to say?
It was so exciting. We went up there, the mayor was there, and we were up there, and they had a police escort bring them in. They were so excited, so it was really cool to see that happen.
It was fun getting a call from Canyon School District saying, you know, when the football team wins state, we do this big thing, we do a parade for them and all this stuff, but when it's folks in theater, they can tend to be ignored, and they called and said, Hillcrest just won, we want to get UPD there and give them an escort, we want to try to get fire there. So that was my Saturday, scrambling to try to make sure that we had folks there, and it worked out. We had a great turnout, and everything that I know is that those kids felt pretty good about their accomplishments and the celebration we had for them. So
Could we do some sort of recognition program here at our next council meeting? Have them come?
Yes, that was something we did.
That's a big group.
There's
two buses
City
there
Manager Dahl and I
students.
have discussed that a little bit to see
Okay.
if we
I think
could
it'd be
do
great. I
something.
mean,
Yeah.
I don't know of any other state champions that we've had in Midvale for quite some time, so it'd be nice to get them here.
State theater, they win it often, they just don't get recognized, so.
Well, let's change
Yeah.
that.
I mean, they were state champs 2 years ago as well, COVID year, so.
See how little recognition they get? Like, who knew that?
Okay. City Manager Dahl.
I'll keep mine short, just letting you guys know, I meant to mention in the workshop, we were talking about the legislative items, the mayor and I will be going to I think Quinn too, going to the Utah League of Cities and Towns Conference the next 3 days. One of the things is, just given the sheer number of bills that were passed this year, we hope to get some more information on some of them so that we can better execute on them, but we will be available, or at least I should say I will be available by phone and text over the next 3 days, but we'll be out of the city. Otherwise, the next thing is I was going to have Glenn just talk a little bit about the bulky waste program and what we've done.
Yeah, so we had another successful event this year. It wrapped up last week. As Bryant mentioned, though, there are still some piles out there, which is typical. We have started the enforcement process. Code will be out. Educating those residents, telling them that they need to get it cleaned up, and providing $10 landfill vouchers for those residents as well. ACE was really accommodating this year with the storm, especially on the you missed my pickup type calls. They were out the next day, in between normal pickup days to have a presence in the city. But that's the program, and I think we're good.
Thank you.
Can I ask real quick? A lot of the area behind Public Works, not that it's your fault at all, but a lot of the development that's occurring there, there's a lot of junk, like all throughout the construction zones, like tires that have probably been there for decades. Is that something too that we're going to have them clean up? I think it looks terrible.
I will work with the folks on that project.
Okay,
Yes.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving into our public hearings of the night. So we do have 3 public hearings. Matt, Garrett, say anything wrong, correct me here. I'm hoping, and just to run this by the council quickly, is that because these 3 items are all related to the same project, that I'll read through each of the items, and then we'll hear from Liz, from our staff, we'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll go to a public comment for all of those items at once. Do you all have any issues with that? We can do it individually, but because they're all related, just going through and doing it at one time.
Are there 3 different action items?
I don't believe we have action items on
Okay.
these tonight.
Yeah, then that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Okay, seeing no objections to that, that is what we will do. So you all have to listen to me read again, so give me a minute. Okay, so we do have 3 items. The first being, consider a rezone request for property adjacent to the Mills project located at approximately 208 and 228 East, 8,000 South from single-family residential 1 agricultural overlay zone to multifamily residential medium-density zone. Item 2, consider a request amending a large-scale master plan for the Mills project located at approximately 208 to 272 East, 8,000 South, and 8052 to 8082 South, 300 East. And item 3, consider a request for preliminary subdivision approval for Phase 2 and 3 of the Mills projects located at approximately 208 to 272 East, 8000 South, and 8052 to 8082 South, 300 East. Liz, thank you.
Yes. Okay, apologies, my presentation is kind of in 3 separate chunks, but I'll go through it all so we can get to the public comment. So the first of the requests is for a rezone change, and this is just to the area highlighted in blue that you see. So everything that is in that brown color has already been rezoned, and the middle chunk is the phase 1 of the Mills project that is already being constructed currently. So everything else, just kind of west of Hammer Mill and Cedar Mill Lane, and south of that is Phase 2, which was previously approved, and nothing is changing with that. So everything that is in blue is the new property that they have acquired, that they are proposing to rezone to RM12 to match the rest of the Mills development. I think you have all been through a rezone procedure before, but code discourages it unless one of these 3 findings is able to be found and met. When the original Mills project was approved back in April-ish of 2021, staff found that they satisfied goal number 3 about the surrounding environs significantly changing to allow it, and staff still finds that this is applicable to the new property as well. I guess, any questions about the rezone? If not, I'll just continue on. Okay. So the amended large-scale master plan is just to include the new portion in blue, which will be their phase 3. This is where most of the public comments have come concerning how they are activating their open space. So there is a proposed pickleball. I should say, I haven't received any public comment about anything else concerning the project except for this issue with the open space and how they're planning to do that. So provided you with their landscape plan and kind of their pickleball court details, as I'm sure you'll hear more about that, so we can leave that on the screen if that's better when public comment is happening. Otherwise, staff found that we found that they met everything regarding their large-scale master plan. As for their preliminary subdivision, they are just proposing to subdivide, again, the previously approved phase 2 and then the new phase 3 that they are adding, and they've provided their preliminary plans as well. And that should be everything for me.
So what was the comments on the pickleball open space?
I think most of the comments, and I think they'll speak to it tonight, but were regarding the noise for the residents that live just to the west of the property. Because you'll see Tap Lane, there are a number of residents whose backyards would back right up to the pickleball courts, which kind of go in that middle section of phase 3. So I think...
Was it noise just in general any time of the day or more late at night?
I think it was in general any time of day. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong, but yes, I think it was in general about the noise. Yeah.
Liz, just so I make sure we're on the same page here, that's parcel C. That's on these other maps, right? Is where that's. Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure I'm looking at this correctly.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Not seeing any other clarifying questions for Liz.
Okay.
We will. Oh, sorry.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it could be a question for the developer. The walls that are right there, are they just the standard 6 foot? Or I know we allow up to, with permission, is it up to 10? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can have the applicant speak to it. Yeah, he's here.
I mean, I'm just thinking for noise. I'm assuming it's probably just your standard 6 foot, but I didn't know.
Yeah. I know that we already have an ordinance that discusses sports and recreational stuff that we've discussed that kind of logs the hours. I think, Vendelin, correct me, I think it was 7 to 10, something like that. So anything outside those hours would violate.
Or 10 to 7, in the night. Yeah, to 7 a.m.
7 a.m., yes.
10 p.m.
10
Like
p.m.
that'd
to
be a
7.
very short window, 7 to 10.
No, you're right, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, we only believe in quick bursts of recreation in this city. That's it. We don't want to overdo it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Jacob, I'd invite you up as well, just if there's anything that you want to add or clarify.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening, Council. Jacob Balse with Carbet Homes, 273 Northeast Capitol Street. Happy to be back and proposing this extension onto our previously approved mill subdivision. If you haven't been there, we have a model open that's been open for maybe 6 months, and many homes under construction. We have our first residents living there now, with many more to follow. So if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go do so. Really, this is a property that we've been working on from the beginning. It took a little more time to get the property acquired, and so we're going back, amending the plan, and amending the zone to include these additional 11 lots. And it's really just a continuation of what we're already doing. Same product, similar lot sizes, same development agreement, just amending it to include this parcel. Before the Planning Commission meeting, I had a meeting with the neighbors. It was well attended with the folks from Tap Lane. There were some folks on the other side of 80th South that attended well. I think in general, the neighborhood was supportive of what we were doing. I know that in the past there was some opposition to the development for the folks on Tap Lane. I intentionally placed an open space against our property. I'm not sure if I can show that. Okay. I intentionally placed our open space against the folks against Tap Lane to try to buffer our homes from their homes and try to make it a little softer for them. We have 4 open space areas in the community, and all of them are a little bit different. We try to activate them in different ways. This one specifically, we had parking out in front, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to include some pickleball. It's a popular sport, it's growing, it's fun, and if you play, you'll understand why. And so, but in doing so, I was trying to be conscious of the neighbors as well. If you go to the pickleball plan, you can see there's a 6-foot fence along the property line of our property and the backyard neighbors on Tap Lane. But in addition to that, just inside that fence line, there's a landscape buffer of about 5 feet, and I've included a row of trees there. Can you switch it to the landscape plan? One more. Yeah, there you go, that's better. So you can see the row of trees that are there between the pickleball court and the property line. Knowing that pickleball courts make noise, I mean the ball makes noise when you hit it and it bounces. The folks make noise when they play. And so I wanted to try to protect their privacy. In addition to that, right on the edge of the pickleball court, there is a fence. I think they generally are an 8-foot or a 10-foot chain link fence to make sure the balls stay within the court. We have a fence around the entire perimeter so that we can control who uses the court and when it's used. We could do a passcode or a key fob code to access the court so that people from the surrounding neighborhoods aren't using it. And that's primarily just to keep it so it's not, overly crowded. So I think it's a fun way to activate the space. I know it's a popular sport, and we were just trying to do something that was fun to do. But there was quite a bit of opposition from the neighbors, and they were concerned about noise primarily. They were concerned about lights, and in the previous meeting, I said I think they have some valid concerns. I mean, when you activate a space, you want people to use it, they're going to make noise. And so at that time, I said that we're willing to make some changes to the courts and try to minimize it the best we can. Because I've already made the submittal, I hadn't made any changes. I wasn't able to make changes between the Planning Commission and City Council, but I'm certainly willing to consider them based on feedback from the council tonight. So that's all I have. It's weird to talk about pickleball court on the zone change, but that's really what the focus was on the Planning Commission. So anyway, that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any clarifying questions for Jacob?
Just to be clear, whatever we pass in the future, if we do, we're not going to have any say of whether there's a pickleball court here or not. That's going to be a decision that you will have to make. Like, we can't say, no, you can't put a pickleball court there. The city council rules that no pickleball court shall be placed there. So I'm just wanting to clarify that to be sure. Like, we don't have the authority to tell them where or if they can place a pickleball court, do we?
If you approve the zoning amendment, then no.
And no.
They're entitled to make whatever changes within that zone or follow through with whatever that zone allows.
Which is why I've said this before, I think sometimes we put the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart because this pickleball court discussion is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
It's great that we're talking about it, but it's not relevant to the rezone at all. And in fact, it only serves to kind of cloud our judgment to say, do we want to approve this rezone, knowing that an unpopular pickleball court's going to go in here when that has nothing to do with the rezone at all.
Thanks for the
Is
clarification.
Pickle Drive the road name for real? Please tell me that it would be.
It was the road name that I proposed, and I was pretty proud of it because it's hard to pick names, and I try to be creative. But it's not recorded. We can change the name of the road. It's not an issue.
I do just have a general question about the development because I see where Councilman Gettle's coming from. It puts us, I can see why people are frustrated about it, but I can also say it puts us in an interesting spot where we can't say, yes, we'll approve this, but you can't put this here or whatever.
Yeah.
What is your average sales price right now?
Oh, I bet it's in the mid-sevens.
Because that was a concern that a lot of citizens had. It was going to be this really inexpensive project.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's our most expensive subdivision we've ever had at this point, just because of inflation and whatnot. So.
Yeah. They're not cheap. I wish we could make them cheaper, but it's a wild time. So.
I just for the sake of the audience, could we all just speak up a little bit more as we're talking on this item?
If I could break in here, Mayor and Council, while the zone change itself, pickleball may not be related to the zone change, the one place that you would be able to regulate that if you so choose is in the development agreement that would go along with the subdivision.
Thank you.
I mean, it does, I mean, I agree with you, Dustin, that it's not part of the zoning. But if we rezone, the reason we've held the rezoning up a lot of times is because we didn't like the product that was going to come out of it. And that's the same thing here. We have our citizens that have concerns, and if we have the ability to make those concerns good for both the developer and the community, then we need to do that if it's through a development agreement or whatever to make it work for everybody. I'm not saying we should deny it. I'm just saying that we have the opportunity, as we did before in this whole thing. I mean, we've gone year or two just tried to figure out so you could get this property and do what you wanted eventually, because originally you couldn't do it.
Right.
So if there's a way we can work out through a development agreement that works for our citizens and you, that it's win-win for everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, that's the best part of government, is if we can actually do that.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd love to see us be able to do that.
Yeah. And let me add, the pickleball court, and I stated this in the planning commission meeting, the zone change is not going to live and die on the pickleball court. It's a fun amenity, and for people to use it, it's a fun attraction, but it's not a deal killer for me. If the council decides it's a problem, then it'll go away, and we'll activate it with something, or we'll do something else in the open space. So, and I think thanks to the community development director, Adam Olson, the clarification helped. I mean, the council has some input there because there is a development agreement that on this property, and one of the agenda items is amending the development agreement to include this property. So,
I mean, I can see lots of ways you could probably make it a lot more easier for the neighbors.
Without a doubt, there's a lot of options we can do.
Options, and then options is maybe move it to the east, up in the corner or something.
Yeah.
You still don't lose any more homes.
Yeah, we can move it. We can reduce it to one. We can eliminate it. We can do something totally different. There's a lot of options.
But yeah, I think if we could work with the community, then I think it's a great win for everybody.
Yeah.
What kind of backyard space are these supposed to have?
I think the minimum rear setback is 25 feet.
Okay. I guess I have mixed feelings on it as I think about my own life, and I've got 3 kids who are all water. My wife calls them water babies, even though they're not babies anymore. And we have an above ground pool, and I feel bad for my neighbors as this last weekend when it was still not super warm, and they decided they were going to go out there, and they're just like screaming, having fun, and I'm going, my poor neighbors. And I'm going, it is, I do think this provides the opportunity for more noise, but it does not eliminate the possibility for noise, again, just as I think about my own life and my poor neighbors.
Yeah.
So I look at this, we've been involved with quite a few communities over the last, as I've been on the council 8+ years, and then through my career, a lot of different developments, and seeing the different amenities in these, in these types of developments. This would be the first time I've heard people against like an amenity like this. I get the noise issue from the proximity, because it usually is an added benefit to the people that live there, and you're right. You could change it. You could put a different amenity in there to try to activate the space. And I look at development up by me that's just inside Sandy. Every time I drive through that townhome development, the developer put in a sand volleyball pit. And I didn't represent that developer, and I just remember thinking, they put in the cheapest amenity they could to meet the standard that Sandy had. But there's no noise because nobody uses it, right? So they put it in, and the 2-3 times a year I drive through and see somebody out on it, I was like, I guess it's getting used today,
Yeah.
So you can look at that and say, yeah, how do we balance that of the neighbors that are there not getting the benefit of using it and not interrupting them? But it is, the amenities for the people that live in that community, it is an enhancement for it, for their life and for their community. So I get it. If you can, if you can move it somewhere else, right? It's going to be next to somebody's home, causing some noise. But whether that's next to somebody who is paying for that, right? Or the neighbors who are not paying and getting the benefit. But I like the idea of having a good amenity in the community. I am sensitive to the noise of the other neighbors, but I would much rather have pickleball or some other amenity that's getting used rather than a sand volleyball pit that they check the box and it's a waste of space.
Yeah. The double-edged sword here is we have a cool space and we're activating it. The bad part is that people will actually use it. That's what we're discussing, because you're right. We do a lot of improvements in spaces like this, and they're largely not used. But the pickleball court will get used. There's no question.
Yeah, a lot of these communities are taking their tennis courts and converting them to pickleball.
Yeah.
Right?
And,
I'm wondering, would you guys be open to some sort of like acoustical barrier or something, just to kind of try to help alleviate any of the noise for the neighborhood?
Yeah, I don't know what that would be. It'd be probably ugly.
Fencing that's specifically for that is not hideous, but it's some sort of like chain link.
I think what we've tried to do is, we have a 6-foot vinyl fence, a chain link to prevent the balls, and a row of trees. I think an evergreen tree that's there year round is probably the best barrier for noise.
Are you lighting it?
We can, or we don't have to. I'm sure the neighbors wouldn't want us to, and we're fine not doing it.
That would be more annoying than the sound.
Yeah.
If it's 10 o'clock at night and that's shining in your, back, if your bedroom's upstairs and it's shining through, that would be, and that would also alleviate the sound issue at least at night.
Yeah.
If no one can play at night, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a 12-year-old would try with a flashlight in one hand or something.
I think having no lights is a good compromise, or a good solution to help mitigate noise late at night.
I know we are getting down the rabbit hole a little bit here. I want to take a step back and open up public comments so we can hear comments, and then we can bring back this discussion. We'll invite you back up if we've got more questions, suggestions for you. But with that, I would ask for a motion to open public comment.
Mayor, I move that we open to public hearing for comment.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Okay, that passes. Just a reminder for everybody, anybody who wants to speak, you'll be given the chance to speak. We are going to limit it to 3 minutes per person. The other thing is that we don't have any action items on this tonight, so there will be no vote on any of these items tonight. That will be at our next council meeting, so just keep that in mind. And please state your name when you get up here, and with that, come on up.
Thank you for having me. My name is Christian Bletsacker, and I actually live next door to the pickleball courts. So the first thing with pickleball, and we had this same discussion 3 months ago, and it's like we never had it at the planning meeting. If you Google pickleball courts, it's not the loudness, it's not anything, it's the pitch. It is literally makes people insane. If you Google loudness of pickleball, you will see lawsuits, you will see articles, videos, all kinds of news stories. It is literally the biggest nuisance ever. It's not equivalent to basketball. It's not equivalent to tennis. It is literally 25 dBs louder than tennis, which equals 4 times louder than a tennis racket, a basketball, or anything else. And it's quick. The course is slow, so it's a nonstop ding, ding, ding all day long. My problem with the pickleball is this. It sounds like an amazing thing. It sounds like everything else. Why isn't it in the middle of the neighborhood? Like, people will choose to live by the pickleball court. That sounds great. But I'm the one that's going to live with the pickleball court. Literally, all of Tap Lane is going to enjoy the noise of pickleball, while all of the Mills is going to enjoy the silence of the pickleball, but have the fun of the pickleball. Can't they move it somewhere else, like in the middle of the neighborhood or something like that? There's a bunch of acoustic fencing. One, they did a study in Park City. If you want acoustic fencing, it has to completely block the player and the paddle. If you have a second-story window, which I do have, the fence would have to be over 20 feet tall at that close to cover it, and they closed that court down. And it was a private court, not a public court. This is going to be like a mini rec center behind my house. I live in a neighborhood. They live in an HOA. Let the HOA deal with the pickleball. I looked up the Midvale Municipal Code, and I'm probably wrong, but this is what I found. I found there's a nighttime noise ordinance from 10 to 7 a.m. I also saw that from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., there's allowable dBAs of 10 over the ambient sound. The studies I found, within 100 feet of pickleball, it will be 74 dBs, which is the same as a freeway. A freeway is 70 dBAs. So my question is would that even be legal to put a pickleball court that's going to be over 74 dBAs in my front yard, let alone in my backyard, all day long? Would that even pass, like, code or anything like that? If they want to have a pickleball court, give them a pickleball court. This is giving me a pickleball court. And go drive by a pickleball court. Go Google pickleball, noise, any of that, and let me know how you feel about it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have an answer on that, Garrett, city attorney?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I would assume that there has to be some sort of recreational exclusion for that, because, I mean, in that standard, like a football game would be illegal. So maybe we can look into that and understand that code for sure.
Do we have other public comments? Time is yours.
Yeah, my name is Spencer Updike. I also live on Tap Lane. I'll just be really short. It seems like everyone seems like they're in agreement. Like we talked, like he said at the planning meeting, he said they were willing to move it. So again, if you put it in the middle of the neighborhood, then people are choosing to live by it. So it doesn't seem right to me to have it by houses that are already there where we have no choice as far as as how close we are to it. So anyway, like has been said, there are lawsuits going on all over the country. If you look those up, might as well avoid one. It seems like everyone is in agreement that we should move it, including the builder. So it seems pretty simple to me. Thanks.
And your primary concern was just the noise, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jonathan Boss. Thank you for having me. A month ago, the #1 article on CNN was actually about pickleball courts. I don't know if any of you saw it, but it talks about how big of a noise nuisance it is. You guys all pledged about on Earth Day how Midvale takes pollution seriously. This would be noise pollution. Once again, I work 50 or 60 hours a week. When I'm done with working in the summers, I want to go outside. In this article on CNN, and I encourage you all to look at it, I'm more than happy to text it to you, it talks about how people don't even want to go outside. They can't open their windows because the noise is so annoying and it's hitting the decibels that just drive them nuts. So Quinn talked about earlier the development up in Sandy about the volleyball court. As I mentioned in our prior meeting, I actually lived in that development and I moved because of that volleyball court. Because people would show up at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night and we had to call the cops every other night during the summer because people that didn't live there or did wouldn't follow the rules. Just because you have a sign that says these are quiet hours doesn't mean that everyone respects the rules. And to have this in our backyard where we talk about the decibel of being over 74, which I'm excited for Garrett to look into to see if that's even allowed or if that's breaking the code. But as you read this CNN article, there's dozens of communities suing the city, which if that's the way that I need to go, I would prefer not to. The developer even said, hey, if we can eliminate it, then let's eliminate it. Like, those are his words. Let's just take him up on it. Let's put a community garden. Let's get a place where people can actually, their backyards can't fit a garden. So why don't we put a community garden where people can come together, grow basil. Everyone's happy over basil. Bring a community together. But right now, with all these other cities that are having to go through lawsuits, let's just prevent that. Let's get it where the community can come together. I like the buildings that they're building. I just want a quiet spot so after I finish work, I can go into my backyard, grill, and just relax. I don't want to hear that talk. I thought about going to YouTube. They have a 1-hour relay of pickleball and just playing that as I talked so you guys could understand and fathom what that would be. But I want to make sure that I'm being respectful and not doing that. It's just something, if we can make sure that it's quiet, I think a community garden would fill that. But this article is talking about how even being within 350 feet, it's still annoying all the residents. It's going to be in my neighbor's backyard, less than 20 feet away. And a 6-foot vinyl fence, you're just talking about your kids playing in the pool. The vinyl fence isn't going to do anything. The trees aren't going to grow for 15 years, 10 years. So if we could just get ahead of it, eliminate it, or they can move it to the far east where they have it on the other side where there's a church and there's a lot more open room, then let it be there, but don't put it up against our house. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I'm Julie Bruder. I'm on Tap Lane, and our backyard will be right across from the pickleball courts. I do have some concerns about it. One is that the noise. The National Association of Realtors had an article in March of 22. It said that homeowners who live near pickleball courts increasingly have a complaint they're too noisy. One homeowner said that the constant popping is borderline torture. We cannot use our outdoor space anymore due to pickleball and cannot open our windows. The average neighborhood noise is 40 decibels in a quiet neighborhood, and I considered that to be, we're pretty quiet there. Average pickleball court noise is 70 decibels. And even though that's just an increase of 30 decibels, that's 8 times louder than what the average neighborhood is. So that's quite a considerable increase in the noise. There's a acoustical engineer in one of the articles that I read that said pickleball court, or pickleball is not equivalent to tennis or basketball or a lot of the common activities in the parks. It has a really higher noise impact. He advised that courts be built at least 150 feet from the homes. And another source said at least 350 feet from the homes. And even at that, there was in Massachusetts, there was a house, an owner that had a pickleball court 350 feet away from his house, and he sold it because it was too noisy. And then also there's the noise level of the participants, and it's constant. There's a lot of people can be playing all at once, and also the sound walls can be put in, but those don't totally eliminate. The really good ones are expensive, and noise can travel over the sound barriers. And then the last thing is concern over the value of our homes. If these courts are too noisy and people are moving from their homes, what's that going to do to our home value as people come look at our homes and can see, there's a pickleball court. I'm going to be moving into a noisy area, and what's that going to do to the value of our homes? So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, Mayor, can I interject real quick? I know we're still in the public comment period, but looking at, we already talked about the rezone. The pickleball is kind of a separate issue from the rezone, but we can also include something in the development agreement, right, if we approve it. And so if we're approving the rezone, condition upon it, well, I guess we're not even doing that. We're not approving it tonight, but if we're looking at, we amend the development agreement to address this open space area, whether it's moved, whether it's agreed upon, used for a different use or something to address the concerns. That's something we can do, right? I'm just throwing that out there so that we're hearing lots of things on the noise issues, which are valid points, right? But if the complaint is this noise issue, we can address that through the development agreement. And that really is a separate issue from the rezone request. So, not that I'm not trying to discount anybody's comments. I just know if we're going to hear about the noise level for pickleball, we can address that through, this other mechanism. So,
Thank you. Any other public comments?
My name is John Bruder, and I also live at 8033 South Tap Lane. According to my comment to Councilman Sperry is concerning the noise. Based on a study that was conducted by Spendarian and Willis Acoustics and Noise Control LLC in 2018, like my wife stated, an increase of 30 decibels is 8 times as loud. 40 decibels is a quiet residential area on a calm day. 70 decibels is freeway traffic. 70 decibels, or 75 as some have stated, is typical pickleball. 80 decibels can be up to recommended didn't finish that comment, sorry. It's recommended, as has been stated, that it be 350 feet from homes. And if freeway traffic is 70 decibels and the pickleball is 70 decibels, it's almost like having my home, which has a 25-foot setback, right against the freeway. How many of you counselors would like to have your home, your backyard, your home 25 feet away from a freeway? Can't they just put in a green space in behind our yards rather than have a pickleball court? And I know that you've kind of addressed that. So our primary concern, like my wife said, if they put a sound wall in, if you go next to a freeway that's got a sound wall, how much noise from this freeway, if you're 25 feet away from the freeway, how much is that noise reduced for you personally? So I'd like you to consider that when you consider voting on this, that consider what would it be like if each of you had your home 25 feet from a freeway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Madison Smith. Appreciate everyone's time. Really just everyone's kind of reiterated our concern regarding the noise. One thing on Garbutt Homes website for the Mill project, they do have recreation listed in the area. They're letting everyone know Midvale City Park, Copperview Recreation Center, all of both of these locations do have pickleball available at them. So it's not that it's not available in the area, but again, our concern is having it right in our backyard. You know, we've talked about the 70 decibels of the sport, and, you know, that's in consideration of it in a recreational park. When you put it in between all of these homes, that's only going to amplify that noise further. And as far as activating the space, again, it was talked about in the prior planning meeting, certainly something everybody wants to see. There are several developments in the area that do have, you know, kind of more of that open, you know, pavilion or, you know, park area that's maybe a community garden or, you know, something, again, more open without a sport court involved. So, again, we would really appreciate that to be considered, and ultimately would, you know, want to make sure and see if it's possible to, you know, have that decision or an injunction held on the rezone, you know, until that decision is put into the development agreement. So, again, thank you all for your time and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Brenda Tapp, and I live on Tapp Lane. And my mother-in-law developed the lane, and she went through a lot of stuff to get it passed. And I thank you for passing it, or whoever was on the committee then. But it took her like 3 to 4 years to get everything ready and everything. So it's a family-oriented community. And so this new development is pretty much like a family because it's, you know, the new houses and stuff like that. And why not put like a small park for the children to play? And it's not going to be loud. It's always a joy to hear the children play. They play over in the field, and it's just a joy to hear the children play. So being a family-oriented community, maybe you can direct that more for the family, the children, and maybe, you know, and you had like a thing in the paper where saying that you need like you know, the little plots of growing the vegetables and stuff, and that would be a good, like, for their community to, you know, that they can go to and be, you know, together there. So, yes, and the noise, you know, it's very annoying, and I know that Mr. Sperry, you know, had you know, he has good points and stuff, but it's just, yeah, I mean, we're in the backyard, and please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yeah, thank you for hearing us. My name's Richard Tapp Lane. Yeah, when my mom tried to develop a lane, you guys did show you had a lot of control over what really went there and what went on. And a lot of it was good, it was protective and everything. But yeah, we don't want the pickleball. After them guys get up, I could just say the same thing they could do, been saying. But basically, yeah, we don't want the noise there. We went through heck to get it. What's funny is the people that they bought the ground from, kind of made out like we were going to do to them what's happening to us. They didn't want us to develop there. All these bad things were going to happen. And what's funny is they turned it on to us. But anyway, yeah, we just want to just keep it nice and peaceful. It's a great community. And thanks for your time. I'm glad it came down to listening, because you always have these thoughts in your head, both council's evil or something, but
we're not that bad.
Yeah, I know, but you're not. But
actually, secrets out.
Yeah, but actually, it's great. And then, what you said too, and you want to work with us. If you want to put it there, maybe put an indoor. And you can play it all year round, in winter and everything, and give us some passes or something. But anyway, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I've got that note written down. Council is evil, just so it's clear. All right, any other public comments?
So, Mayor, before there's a motion to close the public comment, I just want to, they can nod their heads, or if they answer this in one way, if they came back up, but we get the noise issue, right? But as far as the zoning for the density or anything, there's no objections to that, right? It's the use of the open space that we're dealing with. Okay, got it. Oh, there was one.
You can
If you're going to make a comment, you'd have to come back up. But because as we're looking at a rezone, that's more what it is, and then we can talk about the open space use.
And just please restate your name.
Brenda Tapp. And on that comment, well, how far is the easements from the fences? Is it 25 feet? Or are you guys letting them go like?
The setbacks?
Yeah, the setback. Is that 25 feet, like when we had to build our property, it had to be 25 feet from the fence to our house. And we can't overhang,
Adam, do you know what that is off the top of your head in the RM12, what the setback would be?
Existing setbacks for the subdivision right now.
I understood for the backyard, it's 25 feet for a backyard.
Is that what's on the plat?
For a structure, I'm not sure
Oh.
No, but just
Just
of the
in
whole
general.
general
Yeah,
thing,
just in
on
general.
that whole, fence line. So that's what we had to do, but I know everything changes, but it would be nice to have that setback like we had to, but, I don't know.
There is, and it's on their plat.
20 feet.
I just don't know offhand.
20 feet?
20 feet.
All right, city attorney just looked it up, it's 20 feet, so.
Jonathan Boss, for the rezoning, is it possible to suspend the rezone until we get that entered into the development agreement?
Well, we're not voting on it tonight.
Yeah.
We're not voting on the
So-
rezone?
No,
Not
this is to
to-
get your comment. We'll vote on it in a future meeting.
Okay, but would
And
that
then
be?
Having, to answer your question.
Yeah.
We have to vote on the rezone first, but they can work the development agreement before we actually have to vote.
Okay,
Okay.
so that we could come to an agreement on what it could be
If we
before
can, if
there's
we
a
can
rezone
come to an agreement with the developer, what he
Yeah.
wants to do, before we actually rezone, then we can rezone and get hopefully what the citizens want.
Perfect.
That
And
will
then-
be, that would be what I would like to do.
And then Garrett, for you, if there was an agreement made, is there something that the community can do to file an injunction to stop the rezoning until we get that figured out for the development agreement?
So I can't provide you any legal advice
Okay,
because I
you saw what I was
represent the
doing
city. But you're welcome to definitely look into that.
Okay,
But,
perfect.
but if we're approving it, condition upon that, that's.
In other
that's
words,
part of it, so.
if the developer will work with the city to change the development agreement to
Perfect.
whatever is good for him and what we think is good for us, then we can vote and it'll be in the development agreement. So, but we have to do the development agreement information know that information before we actually vote
Perfect.
on the rezone.
Okay, thank you for
Okay, does that
clarifying.
make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And I know we're still open, but I'll pose my question that I'm going to ask Mr. Ballstead here in a minute. Is he going to have time to get back up after we close it? Mayor's like,
we
whatever.
can always call
But
him up.
I mean, because the thing will be, I've got to assume there's other amenities cheaper than a pickleball that you can put in that it alleviates the noise, which we would address those things through the development agreement. And I mean, that just saves money for the developer, really. I mean, I know it's amenities, but, so that's what I'm saying. If we address these things in the development agreement, there's options. So, it may not even have to, I mean, you can get, may not even have a pickleball.
The bottom line is, you can work with the city to do the development agreement before we actually have to vote on the rezone, right?
My concern overall with this topic that's going on is what if the development agreement just puts in grass, right? And then in 5 years, there's an HOA with it, right? They decide they want to put a pickleball court in, right? There's not can they do that, right?
Development.
That's what worries me, right?
So yes, the development agreement would only last for as long as the term of the development agreement, and those are set by ordinance to expire after a certain period of time. And yes, that open space could be changed as long as it meets our zoning code.
Here's the thing, after representing thousands of HOAs, they're way too cheap. They're not gonna put the money into taking out grass and putting in a pickleball court. They're not gonna do it.
The limitations of city are not
opportunity is
as
still there.
definitive as I think people think with a topic like this.
The opportunity's there, but they're not gonna, as soon as they realize, I'm gonna have to pay so much of my own money to put in a pickleball court, I don't want a pickleball court. That's what's gonna happen.
They can't put a nuclear power plant in because that's against zoning. That's my point. But a pickleball court isn't, so it could come up again, I guess is more my point, than other issues like, putting a home there that's likely going to stay there for a very long time. Where just changing how that's activated could change sooner than something else is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So it's a challenging topic.
It is, but the bottom line is, anything can change over a period of time, no matter what. Zoning can change, everything can change, so we can
control zoning change.
We can,
right?
That's what we're talking about. But eventually, I'm just saying, everything can change eventually.
And eventually, all of you will be replaced and somebody else will be here with a different viewpoint.
That's because we're evil, right?
Never.
My name's John
I'm
Bruder
training a
again.
Sith to take my place.
John Bruder, I live on Tap Line. I have a question. From what I understand, I called earlier today and they said that they would not take a vote tonight, but they would do it at the next city council meeting. Will there be public comment at that city council meeting as well? Before you take a vote?
Yeah, so, Garrett, if I say this wrong, you'll correct me. We won't have a public hearing again, but every meeting, we have public comment at the beginning. So if you all want to come to that meeting again and give public comment again, you're more than welcome to.
Because I'm assuming that a month is going to go by before you have another meeting.
Another 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Pardon?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Because we forget after one, so we have to go
Yeah,
at least 2.
well, if you forget after one, then we'll need to come back and tell you everything. that
We have to
told you.
make sure we forget to say.
Yeah, you'll have to take and read all the comments again. But the other question is it was stated here that there's a 20-foot setback. From what I understood, based on what I had read from Midvale's website, I can't remember where it was, but it was in reference to the Midvale Mill. There was a 20-foot setback for the front and a 25-foot setback for the back properties. And originally I thought it was a 6-foot setback each side, but then I discovered it was less than that for each neighbor. So it's 5.5 feet, I think, between each to the fence for the side setback. From what I understand, if they were to put a pickleball court in, that could go right up to the fence line. He's talking about putting a fence in and trees, but the pickleball court would go right next to the trees. So So realistically, my home would be, the back of my home is where I have my office that I do my work. I would be 25, at least 25 feet, probably 30 feet from the edge of the pickleball court. Again, like I said, how many of you would like to have your home next to the freeway, your backyard? So thanks.
Thank you. All right. Again, I said if anybody wants to make a comment, you may, but I would like to close public comment.
I move that we close public comment.
Okay, we have a motion to close and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, public comment is closed, but council can continue to discuss this. I know I have a couple thoughts, but I'll see if there's any other.
Can we ask the developer?
Yeah,
question
developer
first?
to come back up.
Jacob, come on up.
So first of all, I appreciate all the research, right? I mean, that was great on pickleball. And I made notes because for my trade organization, I write articles. And I was like, I'm going to write an article on pickleball and the noise issues. So thanks. You want me to like give you guys credit on all of that? I can't. But no, that was fantastic. And, you know, with Jacob, I bet you regret putting the pickleball on the proposed plat now, huh?
It's, zone changes are always kind of wild, but I've never been in one where it was only about pickleball, so.
I have not either.
But I think the most important thing for everybody is you guys are open to changing that use, moving it, doing something to address the concerns, right?
Yeah, no question. We can eliminate the courts. It's not an issue. I wouldn't have even presented it, but I couldn't change the package, so we have to redo all this discussion again with council. So whatever the mechanism is to make the amends, make the change to that landscape area, we're willing to do it. If you need to write it into the development agreement that there's no pickleball, that's fine. This isn't about pickleball. I know it's about the neighbors, but it's not for us. We don't care. This is about the zone change, and if we need to eliminate the pickleball, that's totally fine.
I don't know what the answer is on this. And I just want to know, I really appreciate how respectful everybody was tonight in public comment. And Jacob, I appreciate you being here. I've seen, in my short time in this seat, I've seen zone changes go much worse than this.
Yeah.
On the relationship between a developer and a neighborhood. So appreciate all of you in working together on this.
Yeah.
I get into a little bit of a weird place of going, it feels weird for me of governments saying what amenities should or shouldn't be in a neighborhood. Now, I'm also a big believer that we need more neighborhood communal spaces. And it's really hard to do that in existing spaces because we don't own the land. It's often not available land. So I really like the idea that in these new developments, I appreciate the focus on trying to provide that because I think it's something that most people in our own neighborhoods want, our own amenities that are nearby, that are walkable, that we can get to. I also I think we need to respect the neighborhood there. I mean, I guess personally, what I'd prefer, and the council will help make this decision, but is if you took that where that pickleball was and you moved it across the street to, I don't know if you're going to know what I'm talking about off the top of your head, but it's numbers 305, 304, and 303, and just switching those. I feel like I would rather make that change, get it away from their neighborhood, and then say, you guys do what you feel is best for that neighborhood. Because again, I get a little weird about, is that our place? But I also want to respect the neighborhood there. So that's my thinking, but I don't know if that works within your plans to just move that closer to the center and then say, y'all do it, and then that HOA can handle those issues.
It can be done. I mean, it's not hard. We can move the open space across the street. It's not an issue. I mean, I think the reason why we put the open space against the tap lane folks is because we knew that the development was a concern, and I think that the whole development was somewhat as a compromise in their minds. And so I was trying to be sensitive to them. I did not put in the pickleball court anticipating this much objection. If I knew, I would not have done it. So that is certainly an option. If the council thought that the pickleball, having an activated space with the pickleball use was important, we could certainly move it across the street. Yeah.
I think then you might get complaints from the folks that you're going to have living in your community who are going to say that the pickleball court's too loud.
But the difference is that they pointed out, those people are buying in. They're
Yeah.
choosing
Oh,
to
for
live
sure.
next to it, right? I mean, I don't know how far that sound is traveling. You're gonna have the buffer with the homes, that'll block some of the noise, so. And so I don't know about that. I mean, again, I'm grateful for all the research because, earlier this month, I was touring a community with the pickleball, and they were taking pride in their pickleball court that was there right next to their homes.
Yeah.
I mean, their biggest complaint is they only had 4-foot fences, you're putting in 8.
Yeah.
And the high schools, the students from the local high school just came and used their pickleball court as like a place to, make out and stuff. So that was their problem, not noise. But,
Yeah.
can I say that on here? Do I have to go to like Old They were necking or something.
Lori, make sure that's in the minutes.
I will, for sure.
What's the term we have to use here for that?
I know after tonight, I don't want to hear about pickleball anymore.
Just go, it's so much more fun
And I
to play.
play pickleball. I
It's not
love.
fun to
I don't
talk
even
about
like it anymore. I
Oh.
think I'm going to quit my pickleball club.
No, you should go play, it's fun.
No, and I appreciate, as a developer, all the way through, from the very start of this whole thing, you've worked, and we've worked really hard to put something decent over there that
Yeah.
the citizens can enjoy, the new people moving in can enjoy. So I think you just need to work with the city and come up with some plan, whatever it is,
Yeah.
that will alleviate the concerns
Yeah.
and move on.
Yeah.
To me, and I think that's doable by 2 weeks from now when we meet.
No problem, no
You know?
question. In my mind, I've already resolved what we're gonna do. And I've heard enough from the neighbors and the planning commission and our neighborhood meeting that I don't think they're gonna be happy with any location for the pickleball court. So I'm totally resolved to remove it and do something else in that space.
I mean, you had somebody, they said, put it inside. You got the big church there. You got it? That's your big clubhouse? That's your indoor pickleball court? You may lose a few houses, but,
We don't like it that much.
yeah.
But we hope you put in some amenity that really helps those that are buying into.
Yeah, this community the zone is actually pretty unique because there's a lot of open space. This is one of 4 spaces, and so I think they'll be, even though the yards are not big, the common spaces are nice, and I think they'll be used, and I think they'll be used the way they're intended, so.
Well, I appreciate you working with the citizens,
Yeah.
with the neighbors.
And I think you should keep Pickle Lane, by the way, just
Yeah.
as a memorial to this conversation.
That's why I said no matter what, I would like pickle just to stay. Road.
A little plaque out front, rest in peace, pickleball courts.
For those,
You know.
for those involved in street names, you can't repeat a name in the entire county, and it's so hard to find street names. So someone that's gonna do a pickleball is gonna see this, want to use this name, and they won't be able to, so I'll retire it and I'll pick up a different name. So, anyway, any other questions or comments, council or mayor?
No. Again, I really do appreciate the input from the neighborhood and
Yeah.
and from you, so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pickler's retirement, I don't know.
All right, moving on in the agenda. Next up, we've got our consent agenda. Just one item, consider minutes of March 21st, March 30th, and April 4th, 2023. If you've had an opportunity to review those minutes, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
Mayor, I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that?
I'm looking forward to reviewing the meetings of the next time. So
That's right.
See what I said.
Second.
Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry.
Aye.
Glover.
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
And Gettle.
Yes.
Mayor's ready to take a vote to expel me out of this meeting or something.
Second.
All right, that passes. Thank you. Moving on to our action item of the night. Consider resolution number 2023 R16, authorizing the adoption of a term sheet between Midvale City and the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City for the design, installation, and maintenance of a mural and approval of mural artist recommendation. Cody.
They would gladly. What's that?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. As an aside, one of the bloodiest council meetings I've ever seen was in Orem when they were wanting to reduce the number of racquetball courts from 18 to 12. I think that lasted a few hours. So this was very tame and peaceful compared to that. So I'm coming before you was posted as an action item, but really we wanted to discuss it and then push the action to May 2nd meeting. But we would like to see, the RDA would like to see a mural on the old fire station wall, the north-facing wall of the old fire station. Upon legal review, we made some changes to the wall agreement, and so we've added those to the term sheet, and those were not posted and noticed, and so that's why this is just a discussion. But that is the wall, the north-facing wall, and so if you just go to the north, then you have the Gerhard Cole building, and then just to the south is Unique Auto Body. So that's where that's situated, and it will be in place for probably 2 years. Really, the life of the murals that we're looking for is 3, and if this does come down after 2 years, then I would still call it a win to have a beautiful facade right there. But we did want to discuss it, get your temperatures on it, as well as the proposed artist that we would think would fit for this location. The selection committee has already met and selected the artists and matched them with walls at this point. And so the below is an example of one of the works that this artist, the proposed artist, has done. And so the artist that we've looked at it and we really like goes by the handle of Creo Bravo, Salt Lake City resident, highlights her Mexican heritage and is inspired by the desert, Notoreños, boots, and Mexican folk art. And those are two other examples of what she's done. The changes, this is used from the template that we had for the wall for the City Hall site, but the differences are as noted there, so we don't want be able to replace the mural just kind of willy-nilly. There needs to be a process for that, so we removed and replaced. If the RDA did not perform and the city could rectify the issue, we didn't want the city to just do whatever it wanted, even though we are kind of one collective body, but this is kind of what the language is going to be in all of the agreements. Specificity on termination, artist obligations, and the rights to the artist to the agency. And so if there are specific questions about that, happy to talk about it, but we really will be coming back on May 2nd to propose it as an action item, but we wanted to kind of take your temperature, see how you thought about the fire station as a location for the wall, and as well as that specific artist. If you have thoughts, happy to hear it.
I know there's some, just separation of the city council and the RDA, so then it says in here, it's no cost to the city, the RDA will reimburse the artist, but it's city money. So, how much are we paying for this one mural?
I don't know specifically. Our cap is 4,000, and that's really for larger walls or more experienced artists. So I would say this one would probably be, and I'm guessing, and we'll get back to you with a number on May 2nd, but probably somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 would be the range that I would guess.
But to be clear, RDA money is earmarked for this and has to be used for this, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like just city money just sitting out there that, we could use to buy a new snowplow or something like that.
Right, and it's, part of it is city money, about 8% of it. The rest is the other taxing entities that have agreed to.
But it could be a mural of a snowplow.
That's true.
We could get it that way. Would that count for Public Works?
Yeah. Would that help?
A mural of a snowplow?
Would that help? A mural of just like a salt pile.
Yes.
And then he can just, when he runs out of salt, he can just go there.
I just wanted to hear the estimated cost.
We're going to use that one for the circles, Quinn.
Yes.
Yeah, so
the
the estimated-
cul-de-sacs. Awesome. I will let people know, including my wife, when she asks when we're getting plowed.
Yeah, so the cost for festival murals is typically lower than a commissioned work because we're bringing an artist together. There's a collective, there's a community. It's an event for them. They get to express themselves, have more creative freedom, and so you do see a lower cost per square foot of mural than if you were to commission it.
That's good to know. This is just as far as I know, the first mural we've earmarked for a building we know it's not gonna be there
Correct.
eventually. So I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure it wasn't in that 10, 15,
Yeah.
$20,000 range.
2,500 to 3,000,
Yeah.
maybe 3,500, but
That sounds perfect.
definitely
for
capped at 4.
A year or two.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or concerns?
Not seeing any.
I mean, it is posted as an action item. I don't know if you have to take action on that. I'd refer to Garrett on that, but that is the,
Are we able to take action tonight and just approve it so you can get started? Or was there a reason why you wanted it to be a discussion item only?
I would refer to Garrett on that, who kind of,
So the term sheet had some material differences than the agreement that's been drafted. So if you adopted the term sheet, you would still need to adopt the agreement at a later date because they're not.
Okay, that makes sense then.
So,
So we'll just table the action
Yeah.
for tonight.
table it for 2 weeks.
yeah.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, move that we table action item A, considering resolution number 2023 R16. Do I need to read it all?
Second.
There, okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion?
Can I just ask that we add the date to that? So that
Oh.
we table it up to.
Tabling it until our next scheduled city council meeting.
Yeah.
On May
Is that May
2nd?
2nd?
On May 2nd, 2023.
As we established, it has to be at least over a week so we forget. And you can come back
Exactly.
up and do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second. Do we second the new one? Second.
Rory, will you
Second.
call roll?
Third it.
Yes, Councilmembers, Barry.
I'm still here. Mayor hasn't kicked me out yet.
We haven't even gotten to the RDA meeting, which is when you usually do.
I know. I usually hold this off until
Let's
that.
say aye. Let's go.
I already did. I already said aye.
Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
And Glover.
Aye. Okay, that's tabled. Thank you. Watch yourself, Quinn. All right, we've got 2 discussion
Council
items.
member Sperry.
Discussion on chicken standards.
Somebody
Liz,
just give me something to like chew, like gum up my mouth.
I've really not seen him get this wild since like my 3rd council meeting, so it's kind of exciting.
One of your first ones did get a little.
We can get wilder.
I think it's been the requisite time to bring back the chickens, so they're back tonight. In case you forgot, since it's been over a week, it was proposed that we could increase the number of chickens per lot size category by 1 in each of our categories. In your packet, we provided the same information for what we currently allow, what our surrounding cities allow, and then what cities of comparable size allow. And you'll see that we're pretty in line with what other cities are doing, but there is some room if the council wants to move that way. So if you have any more questions for me, happy to answer.
I did get some feedback based on my comments from this discussion item at our last meeting, and I have come to the conclusion that I think that we should increase the number of chickens. I don't think 1 addresses the problem very well. As City Manager Dahl said last meeting, 1 chicken produces 250 eggs per year. And I just don't think that, with a family of 4 or 5 or 6, 1 more chicken might not be enough for them. So I see the Murray City recommendations. I think I like those. I think those might be a little bit better for helping the folks who want to keep chickens and want to have eggs that way rather than going to the grocery store. I'm not an egg person, which I will state for the record again. But Murray allows in the 6,000 to 10,000 square foot, they allow 5. And in ours, in that same category, we would allow 3 at the most. So I think that we could increase that instead of just by 1, maybe by 2, or just adopt the Murray recommendations here, which are 5, 6, and 8.
which, comparing it to ours, it just helps out the first 3 levels a ton, adds 1 to the second, and then doesn't even change the last one. So I would be okay with that. The problem I have with ordinances like this is the only people it impacts are honest people. Right? There's plenty of people that have chickens that have more than they're supposed to. There's probably plenty of people that have chickens that don't register them with the city, right? So it's always hard for me to balance that interest of how do we provide it so the honest people can have something they want. Because if they're not, they're going to have as many as they want anyways, right? And we had several in our neighborhood that never registered. They have moved out, so it's not like, an issue. But
the people or the chickens moved out?
Both. They took them with them.
Councilmember Gettle, I've got a clarifying question for you and Councilmember Brown. In the Murray's proposal, the way that I read this is they do not allow anything under 6,000, but we don't allow anything under 5,000. So are you recommending that we cut out the 5,000 to 6,000 range, or are you saying that if you're
5 to 999,
5 to 999 is 5, and then otherwise, and then we follow Murray from there?
Correct. Because I'm guessing that these weren't just made up. I'm guessing somewhere along the way someone did some sort of study to determine health and sound. I mean, it could be as loud as a freeway. If we can ask those people to come back and tell us.
Chickens are pretty quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have a rooster.
Yeah, you don't want a rooster. That's
My neighbor has chickens and he does not have a rooster and they are not quiet. But my kids like them. But they definitely cluck. So, going too crazy above these, or maybe no one ever had it, and then we all just assume some other city has and we're copying each other, which could be. But I like the idea of the Murray, pending what the mayor just asked with the 5,000.
I think we should copy what Murray has here and just exchange their 6,000 for 5,000. So 0 for under 5,000, and then 5 to 9, and just copy this 5, 6, 8.
It's interesting they don't put 0 in there. If I had a 5,000 square foot lot in Murray, I would consider it, I could have unlimited chickens.
Yeah, we need to make that clear.
Yeah.
And then I don't know speaking for myself, I would never have an odd number of chickens. I feel like you have to have 4 or 6, but not 5. That might just be me.
Okay. All right, any other thoughts, or if we don't hear any thoughts against that idea, then I think you've got your direction.
Okay.
I appreciate it. It's hard. I've just had people reach out and say, we'd like to increase them, right? But it's, other than we'd like to increase them is all I've really heard. So it's hard for me to know what would make someone happy. So we'll see what this does, I guess. We could always revisit it or whatever at another time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move that way.
I just feel conflicted because there's still only 2 applications for chickens pending.
Pending, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel conflicted because I know one of those and I'll spend some time, and I mean, I'd like to carve him out and he gets 0. But that's just what I'm saying. It's my dad. So I don't want him to have chickens at the house, but I think he's going to get them. So
Quinn,
I don't know.
I definitely want your dad to have chickens.
Yeah, Dustin's like, so let's increase it from
So
there.
here's the best part of this story that I shouldn't say. The reason why he's getting chickens is the same reason there was chickens at my parents' house, I am assuming.
I have no idea.
And I'll tell you guys later.
Okay.
I didn't even think of that.
Look
But anyway, the mayor wants to really move on, and many others do
forward to
too. So.
Okay, we'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. All right, everybody take a deep breath and discuss campaign finance disclosure ordinance. Good luck, Garrett.
Okay, we'll try and keep this civil tonight. So tonight, after our discussion about 6 weeks, 2 months ago, we talked about making some campaign finance changes for municipal elections in Midvale City. In your packet, you should each have a copy of the red light ordinance for Article 2, talking about elected officials. and specifically some of the things with elections. We've added a handful of things in addition to the campaign finance changes in order to come up to current state code. So that includes, you'll notice under the fidelity bonds that there's an additional paragraph there talking about crime or theft insurance, that we can do that now instead of requiring those who take oaths of office to do separate bonds. We've also removed the oath of office and just adopted Utah State's constitutional oath of office found in the Constitution. And then the political activity, there in 2.16.290, we've just changed to match what is in state code. So those are all the changes that you're going to see in addition to what was discussed, and I just want to clear that out early so you know why there's a lot of red lines. Now, for the portion that was requested for the campaign contribution limits, we've tried to do a handful of things. The first is to limit the total value of a person's contributions, and to be clear, we're adopting the state's definition of a person, which pretty much means an individual, an entity, and so on, as an all-inclusive definition. So any individual or entity may not make more than a total contribution during an election cycle. So from the time they can start collecting donations to the end of the election cycle, $5,000 for a mayoral candidate, and then $1,000 for a city council candidate. And those were the recommended values, I believe, that came from that discussion. In addition, this will then increase every municipal election by the CPI. This is to avoid constitutional issues where, because this does involve the First Amendment, to make sure that people continue to be able to maintain essentially the same voice they had in the previous election, so that they don't become, over time, this doesn't become less and less. In addition to that, we've also included a limitation on a person making a contribution to a candidate. If the person is requesting a decision from you as the city council or as the redevelopment agency to be making a legislative or discretionary decision. So this may include, like we just had tonight, a rezone application. This may include a request for grant funds or some sort of award. Anyone who has a proposal like that that's before this body cannot make a contribution during the election cycle.
So can I ask that? I mean, before us, so from, I mean, as long as they've applied until through the election, or at what time period? What about after? I mean, when you're saying before us?
So election cycle will start from when someone can files for candidacy, that first date, to when the election results are made official. And yes, pretty much anything during that time, if they try and bring a rezone application or something like that, they can't make a contribution during that election cycle.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. How would a candidate know, and then, or is it they make a donation, on the financial disclosures, they disclose it, the city says, hey, they've got something before us and they have to return the money? Or what?
Yes, so that's one of the provisions here.
Okay.
So if someone makes a contribution, that candidate is responsible for returning that money if it's either exceeds those amounts or they have business before the city council.
Okay. So
Now, sorry.
I mean, a couple of, because you said definition of person, right? An individual, an entity. Entities only exist through, I mean, legally they exist, right? But they've got owners and stuff. So the entity can donate, the individual owners of that entity can also donate because they're separate, right?
Yes. So if entity comes with an application, this is on behalf of Development Company LLC. That development company is the only one who is prohibited from donating.
Okay.
President of said company, employee of said company,
They can still donate.
they can donate in their name. And that's a constitutional issue that the limitation is for quid pro quo.
Sure.
And so it does seem a little bit weird, but that's how the case law has fallen, that spouses, friends, whatever, when it's even clearer, they can still make that donation.
Yeah, I know. I mean, did you want to say something, Mayor?
I was just going to ask the question. So it's just during that election cycle. So like this year, our filing isn't until August. But so I could accept a donation from somebody before August that had business with the city, and that would be fine because it's not during the election cycle.
So I need to double check on when candidates can start accepting donations and when they have to disclose that. I don't know. I mean, just at least from, I don't know. At least the definitions that have been used are during the election cycle, because at that point, until you file as a candidate, you're technically not, if someone wants to donate $2,000 to you and you're not officially a candidate.
And I don't know, this goes another layer, and I don't know if we're in a place to go this direction, but like the state, I can go open a campaign account with the state and continuously report every quarter and not be a candidate. I know it's the same thing in Salt Lake City, that you can just you have to always be reporting consistently, but not be a candidate. And I think that's, I worry about that a little, just because I think it's a pretty common thing for people to say, in order to launch my campaign, to even start thinking about it seriously, you may start raising money, just to even test waters. And if this is...
Well, I know on the federal level, you have to declare that you're set up an exploratory.
And that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if there's a way for us to do that, of saying again, because the state, feds do that you make it clear that you're raising money, but you're not necessarily filing for office at that time.
Garrett, I brought this question up to the Lieutenant Governor's office. They were doing some election training. I brought that exact question up to them, and they said we don't do anything with the funds until they become a candidate. And then they have to declare with the disclosures.
And I know,
but until then, we don't.
And I had asked you this question, that if, correct me if I say this wrong, that if you raised funds before you filed for office and before that first disclosure, then on that first disclosure, you would be required to say everything you had done leading up to that point.
Correct. We just don't monitor it before they become a candidate. And if they don't become a candidate, we don't monitor it.
People have wasted money.
I just want to know how to collect funds or collect donations generally, let alone outside of my election cycle. Good for whoever does that. That is,
I can put you in touch with the Salvation Army or Girl Scouts. They seem to be very effective.
I mean, the good news is if someone raised money prior to being a candidate and spent it on the campaign, then they would be required to, at the very least, say that they spent some money, which would technically just be their money at that point. So, I mean, that's all strange. I mean, any one of us as candidates or any future candidates can exploit any campaign finance rules that you have. The point is that, you know, for a city our size, having no limits on like you could buy a council or a mayoral seat very easily without any sort of guardrails in place. So I'd rather get the guardrails in place rather than just not having any at all and saying, you know, people are gonna exploit this anyway, so what's the point of having anything?
I agree. I just, as we go into an election cycle this year, and knowing that August to November is a short amount of time, if I was talking to a candidate, I would say I would start earlier than August, and I don't want our candidates, if somebody thinking about running for office, to think, well, I can't, Midvale City doesn't allow me to do anything, I can't start raising money, and so that's my.
Yeah. I mean, any of us could raise money right now, you know, for a campaign or not, and, you know, then if you, I mean, that, on the national level, that kind of does happen. You know, people hide money and say that it's for their legal defense, and it's maybe not for their legal defense. So, you know, we're not
can do
gonna.
that.
You can't prevent. You can't prevent all bad actors, but you can definitely have guardrails in place.
I know. My thing, and I mean, Dustin already hit on it, right? Is hey, people are going to exploit it. And I am kind of that point. If people are going to go through the effort of exploit it, they're going to exploit no matter what we have, right? And that's just going to be who they are. We definitely don't want quid pro quo, you know, and buying seats. I mean, we all know that's bad. Are we going to say that it doesn't happen somewhere in the country or local? I'm not going to comment on any of that, right? But I don't want to have something that is so complicated that, you know, even like a good candidate who's reading it just like, I didn't know that, and gets tripped up and they're disqualified, right? So that's my thing is if we're going to have some limits and have some of this, just, you know, simplify it so that the people who want to run don't have to go to law school, you know, like Brian and maybe somebody, you know, and Garrett and some other, maybe one or two others in the room. But, you know, just to understand what the ordinance is, to figure it out.
My only concern is related to entities that collect a lot of tax increment, you know, buying a seat. That's what I've always said, and that's what should be limited, you know.
And I think some of them, you know, again, you're dealing with good actors and bad actors, and if a bad actor wants to funnel lots and lots of money into one particular candidate, they're going to. Anyway, some other people who have business before the city, you know, are smart enough to realize, like, hey, maybe I shouldn't donate to your campaign right now. So again, you know, we can't legislate everything, but we can certainly legislate at the very least how much money one candidate gets from one entity per election cycle, and I think that's a good start.
I'm fine with having the rules in that place, but I'm with Councilmember Sperry on this. I just want it to be clear and concise so nobody stumbles into a problem that prevents them from being able to run or whatever. So that would be my concern.
I would, one thing that I think would be a good change for this, and then one request for Rory. It says, so if you take a donation, you're not supposed to, you either need to give it back or give it to the city treasurer to go into the general fund. Can we also add in there, donate to charity? Is that
I looked into that. After looking into it, I wasn't as comfortable with that only.
Then the charity donates that exact amount back to the candidate.
Well, there are limitations on nonprofits, 501c3s being politically active. The harder part would be because it's a First Amendment issue. It seemed that it became a little bit more complicated adding a third party into the mix. If that makes sense. So for the same reasons, we don't offer that at the justice court level of saying, hey, we found you guilty, you have the option of paying a fine, or you have the option of donating to whatnot. So I couldn't find anyone else in the state who is doing it. There seemed to be some concerns that if you end up donating to another political cause or something along those lines, a political nonprofit, that it raised some issues of whether or not that would be doable.
My only, Rory, I know that when candidates file, we give them a nice little packet. I think it'd be helpful, now that we're expanding this ordinance, bullet point version for candidates of, so that there
Absolutely.
isn't that confusion and just hopefully an easy overview for them.
Yes, and I'm amending the campaign financial disclosure, so it will be a lot simpler as well. So,
I just, one last point I want to make, and, we're going to vote on this in 2 weeks, but, I'm perfectly fine eliminating everything else except for the campaign contribution limits, which I've been arguing for a while now, or, that's definitely the most important thing. The other stuff I think becomes a little bit too complicated. My initial idea was to bar anyone who has business before the city from donating money, but as we've discussed it, it sounds like it's, pretty difficult to monitor that. Again, is it going to be Rory when the campaign disclosures come in? He's going to say, wait a minute, there's, who's that person? They shouldn't have donated. So I think, again, if someone gets a donation from someone who has business before the city, it's not, I don't think that's great politics. That could be up to that person's opponent to say, hey, this person's being funded by XYZ company. Do you really want XYZ company to own this council seat? That's, I think, a matter for the actual political process. And again, you're talking about those are the issues where we come into some First Amendment concerns, and as long as you don't have those same concerns with setting finance limits, which the federal government does, and several other municipalities in Utah also do, I think honestly we could stick to that and see how it works, and we can always alter this ordinance later and say, okay, now we're ready to take that other step if we see that indeed becomes a problem.
And is that the general consensus of the council then, would be to eliminate subsection B with anyone asking for a legislative or discretionary action, and just keep subsection A with the 5,000 and 1,000 in order to simplify things?
Fine with me.
What was that, Councilman?
I said it's fine with me. In my opinion, it's like, if you get money, you have to disclose it, and it's available to the public, then they know who you've taken money from. To me, that's the most way to keep you the most honest. Because otherwise, like Quinn said, if you want to cheat, you can cheat. And it's like, that way you can't cheat if you are honest in what you do. But simplify is better.
Did you all hear Garrett's question of just striking
Subsection B. So the legislative and discretionary decision provision, to remove that and just limit it to the $5,000 and $1,000.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Because I think you're going to create a stumbling block for some, not knowing who's in front. And what do? If they get the donation, they go and spend it. It's the next reporting thing. They report it, and the city's like, hey, they have something before the council. I mean, think of somebody who's not on the council, right? They have something before the council, and they're like, well, I spent it. I bought my signs and did this other stuff. Well, sorry, now you have to come out of pocket and return that money. I
mean, that's the whole point, though.
Well, but it is, right? But they're not going to know until after the fact, and so, I mean.
And in some point, it could be after the election that we would discover that error, and then, like, what do you do?
Well, I think there's a difference between if they have something before the council and if they're receiving a tax increment.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so
to be clear, I think all of that should be in. I think the most
There's a very big
transparency
difference,
possible,
in my opinion.
but
Well, the only,
I don't want to be
if you're
overly
running
complicated.
against somebody that's already on the council, it's like they're not before you.
Yeah. You have
The only ones that are running, that are on the council right now, they're the only ones that are going to be before us. So
Right. That's why I said I wouldn't have ever said before the council. I would have said receiving tax increment.
And the reason for
Which is
that,
very different.
the reason for that is, as we were going through these cases, dealing with election donations, it was clear that government doesn't get to choose the voices that can be involved in politics unless it takes the whole category. So if we're trying to limit one voice out of many who has certain types of business before the city council, that would probably be unconstitutional. If we're limiting the voice of an entire group that has similar reasons for quid pro quo, that would be probably held to be constitutional. So when we can't, the case law seems to suggest you can't allow some form of what appears to be quid pro quo, but not others within that type of space. So that's why it was expanded from just certain types of things to any sort of legislative or discretionary action to avoid those constitutional issues. This also could have gone broader if you'd wanted. There's a number that prevent vendors, for instance, people who are engaged in contracts with the city actively from also providing contributions.
I mean, I think that's a great idea, but, you know, it doesn't appear to be the appetite of a majority of the council, so, you know, you take victories where you can, and if the contribution limits are where we get the victory, I think that's great for a start.
I mean, in theory, it's nice, right? Because you don't want to buy candidates. But if you put those limits in, then it's going to be the individual owners or employees of that company, and they're just going to say, hey, we can't go donate. We're going to give all of you guys bonuses so that you can go donate, right? They're going to work around it. Or they're going to go set up Evil Candidate Money LLC as a different entity and donate through that because they're not contracting and have something before the city. So they're going to work around it, right? I mean, I would rather...
It's totally illegal to give an employee a bonus and then tell them how to spend it.
I have no idea, right? I'm not in there doing it. But, yeah. I mean, the thing... I mean, they can encourage them, right? But they're gonna figure out ways to get around it, right? I mean, I would rather that if they're gonna donate and they've got something before the city, at least everybody sees that's who's before, you know, it's under that name and they've got something before the city. It's just straight up. That's my preference.
And at least we have, again, at least we have the limits in place that if a shady group of individuals want to do that, then, you know, if there's 8 of them, $8,000 is the most that they could do in a council race.
I mean, I don't know what everybody's spent. I don't look at everybody else's, but I'm like, I think if you run a candidate race and you have to spend more than $1,000, $1,500, I don't know. I think you've done a ton. I don't know what everybody spent.
Well, I mean, my motivation in proposing this years ago, and again, last year and this year is, you know, we have one very large company who has multiple parent companies as well, who every election cycle seems to donate a lot of money to incumbent candidates, and I don't think that that's very proper. But you know, again, that doesn't seem to be the appetite of a majority of this council, so I'll take the win where I can get it.
Can I ask a clarifying? Sorry.
Absolutely.
I thought you were in favor of striking item B, which to me gets us closer to that.
Yes, I'm in favor of
What
it.
you just said was the opposite of that, so
I'm in favor of it because there's not 3 votes on this council to approve it. So rather than have the whole thing go down in a blaze of glory, I'd rather have the limits in place and we can expand on it in the future. You know, we have an election this year where 3 council members will be elected or re-elected, and then after that we can have a discussion about strengthening our campaign finance if that's the appetite of whatever council sits here on January 1st, 2024. Or January 2nd, considering the 1st is a holiday.
You got it.
Any additional discussion or direction? Does everyone, the one element we also did not discuss is that if someone intentionally violates this, it is a $50 fine the first time it's charged as an infraction. Each time after that, that fine doubles until you hit the maximum that's allowable under state law.
$1 million?
I think it's
So it would be each
750.
election cycle, so it's $50, and then 4 years later it'd be $100.
No.
At what point are you disqualified?
Never.
You don't get disqualified? Just failure, I mean, if you failed to disclose, you're disqualified, right?
Correct.
But, so you keep racking up fines?
Yes.
Can we do anything else? I mean, can we say like 5 hours standing next to the pickleball court or something? I don't know. I mean, can we do this? I don't know.
Freeway sounds.
So, I mean, we can play a little bit
I may
within
opt for
this.
waterboarding, I don't know.
That is for sure off the table.
I don't know, that or pickleball, I don't know.
Just go with the $50.
Okay.
That's fine.
So the difficult part is I'm not sure we have the authority to disqualify someone since state code generally controls, I mean, it controls who can run for office, it controls how it sets how you guys are removed, et cetera. And we're operating in a space that's not, that state code is, hasn't said anything. So that's why my guess is that we probably did not have the authority to remove someone, a candidate, for a violation.
Well, I mean, I just didn't know if at some point state law kicks in and it's like,
No, Utah state law, other than campaign finance, just making your required disclosures, it's unlimited donations from anyone.
And if someone's, breaking our campaign finance ordinance and racking up fine after fine, again, at some point it becomes a political process where you say, hey, do you want this person controlling the money in your city when they can't even properly control or disclose their own money?
Well, one thing to make sure we set expectations of, for instance, in this election cycle, the likelihood that someone is going to violate the law on day one is probably pretty low. But if they do it at their first campaign disclosure, they don't correct it, someone files charges, because we would likely conflict ourselves out of avoiding any sort of appearance that our office has some sort of interest in the outcome of the election. From the time that person is charged to the time they work through their court process with as narrow of the election cycle, this will probably not be resolved
They
before.
could be an elected member of the council at that point.
And then be facing a $50 fine.
That's a lot.
Thank you, Garrett.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We do have an item for a closed session tonight, but we also still have the RDA meeting. So what I'm going to suggest is that we recess our council meeting, go into RDA, conduct that business, and then come back into council and conduct our closed session at the end.
So moved, Mayor.
Great. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, that passes. Let's see here. Okay, welcome everybody to the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City meeting. It is 9:07. Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Board Member Kettle,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Robertson. Here. Glover.
Here.
And Sperry.
I am here.
Thank you. Moving on to public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for public hearing on the agenda may address the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City Board at this point by stepping to the microphone and giving their name for the record. Since we don't have any public hearings tonight, this would be the time for public comment. Do we have any public comments? Seeing none. Move on to consent agenda. Just one item, consider minutes of March 7, 2023. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Rory, will you call roll?
Board Member Bryant. Or
Yes.
Brown.
I was so confused. I even knew it was me. Yes.
Sorry about
Mayor
that.
started that, by the way, by calling you Quinn. Now everything's downhill.
Gettle.
Yes.
Clever.
Aye.
Sperry.
I'm here. Quinn's here too, just walking.
It was a yes, I think.
I'm here. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that,
Robinson. Aye.
Brian, Councilmember Brown is throwing me off.
Rory, did you get through everyone?
Yeah.
So much chatter, I
Yeah.
couldn't tell. Okay, and they were all aye votes? Yes? Okay, thank you, that passes.
Good luck putting that in the minutes.
All right, moving on to our action items. We got two tonight. Item A, consider resolution number 2023-03 RDA authorizing the adoption of amendments to the interlocal cooperation agreement between the redevelopment agency of Midvale City and South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District. Cody.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. So we have two items tonight that we're considering. They're both basically the same thing. When I was putting together these interlocal agreements a couple years back, I made a transcription error, and so used the county's interlocal agreement as the template, and two of the numbers did not get updated in the South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District's agreement and the Central Utah Water Conservancy district. And so the amendments to the interlocal agreement are to take those two numbers that were not updated, that are located in section 8, and update them so that they're congruent with section 7, where they are listed correctly. We have to do a legal certification before we can trigger the Main Street project area to begin collecting tax increment. As part of the legal review, legal looked at all of the documents. They have to make sure everything was done above board according to code section 17C, and they found these two little inconsistencies in the agreement. So they certified it, but noted that there are these inconsistencies and that they will be fixed. So we're fixing them now. The South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District, they met 2 weeks ago and adopted these amendments already. And then the Central Utah Water Conservancy District, they are meeting a week from tomorrow to consider the amendments, but their legal has already reviewed it and they didn't have any changes to propose. And so that's it. So for the Mosquito Abatement District amendment, it's just this $16,500 for the cap, or the $30,000 for the alternative budget cap. That's what it should be, and it's going to replace the $2.3 million or the $4.1 million that are in Section 8. And so that's really the gist of the amendments, just going and cleaning it up. It doesn't make any substantive changes. It just makes it so that it's enforceable and that we have clean agreements. So if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Questions or comments for Cody? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to suspend the rules and adopt resolution number 2023-03 RDA and approve and adopt the amendments to the interlocal cooperation agreement with South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District for participation of tax increment to the Main Street Community Development Area as referenced in Exhibit A of the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, recall roll.
Yes, Board Member Gettle.
Yes.
Clever.
Aye.
Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
And Brown.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Moving on to item B, consider resolution number 2023-04 RDA authorizing the adoption of amendments to the interlocal cooperation agreement between the redevelopment agency of Midvale City and the Central Utah Water Conservancy District. Cody.
Yep, and it's basically the same amendments, updating section 8 so that the caps that are listed in section 7 that are correct in the budget and refer to Central Utah Water Conservancy District specifically are pulled over into section 8 where they were not transcribed correctly.
Any questions or comments for Cody? Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to suspend the rules and adopt resolution number 2023-04 RDA and approve and adopt the amendments to the interlocal cooperation agreement with Central Utah Water Conservancy District for participation of tax increment to the Main Street Community Development Area as referenced in Exhibit A of the Resolution, not the revolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, will you call roll?
Board Member Glover?
Aye.
Sperry?
Aye.
Robinson? Brown?
Yes.
And Gallo?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. With that, does conclude business for our RDA agenda. So I'd ask for a motion to adjourn the RDA and reconvene in the city council meeting.
Motion to adjourn the RDA and convene the city council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. We are back into city council. And we do have a closed session, to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual. Is there a
Mayor, I
motion?
move that we enter a closed session for the reason you just stated.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Glover?
Aye.
Gallo?
Here,
Oh,
or whatever.
What about Paul? Is Paul here?
What are we doing? I say yes.
Fresh.
Aye.
Hey, I adjourned that I'm here.
I don't know how to answer either. Is this a yes or a here?
It's, yeah.
this is a yes.
It's a yes, I am here.
This
You
is
gonna
a
vote?
yeah, this is a yes, no, aye, nay.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Glover?
Aye, here.
I am here.
I am here.
Gettle?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
And Sperry?
I am here.
I'm going to take that as clear yeses from everybody. Thank you.
Clear.
I had to book it with Paul. Come on.
We're going to go into closed session. We'll